Hello, welcome back to my studio. Today it's all about gouache again, and I'm doing a demonstration of a bright sunlit scene. Now this painting I'm doing in my trusty spiral bound book. This is a fantastic little book with watercolor paper and it's 300 gram paper, cold pressed. It's made by Fabriano, one of my favorite paper suppliers or manufacturers. Okay, this little demonstration is a scene from the Western Cape, and from a little village I like to visit from time to time, and it's all about warm sunlight, trees, all the things that I love to paint, and gouache is so fantastic for this sort of spontaneous and direct approach to painting with a water medium. Now, if you're interested in gouache and want to get into it further, I've got a whole course on gouache for beginners. Check it out in the link below, and you'll see also all the materials I recommend for using for your gouache painting as well. All right, let's jump into the painting, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, I'm going to start off with drawing the composition in roughly with some pencil. Just looking for the big main shapes, getting those positioned, and keeping an eye on where the shadow pattern is going to be. That's always important as you'll see the painting develop. I'm using the photo as a guide only. I'm going to be sending the shafts of light and shadows in a more diagonal pattern than in the photo, just to get a slightly more dynamic composition out of the picture. And once I've got the shadows worked out, I'm ready to start painting. As in most cases with opaque mediums like gouache, I will start off with the darks and shadow shapes. Usually ultramarine. In this case I'm using some more cerulean blue because I want a cool green, still a dark but still fairly cool, and I prefer cerulean blue to create my cool greens. Getting the big shapes in, the big dark shapes in these trees, they're going to be the anchor for the painting, and they'll link up with the shadow pattern as well. And getting the shadow pattern in early is always a good practice, especially if you're painting outdoors. But even with a studio painting like this, it's a good idea to get those darks in. They will help you bring out the lights later on. Getting a bit of lemon yellow and a medium yellow into the mix now, to get some variety and shape to the tree shapes. And into the shadows across the road, typically I'm using cerulean blue and some alizarin to create a cool violet. It could lean more towards blue or more towards red, depending on the color temperature I want, but this is quite cool, leaning towards the blue. And now into the lights, I'll use lemon yellow, white, and a little touch of red light. So instead of following the picture too closely, which as you can see has a mountain in the background, I'm going to make the background color more light-filled, using a lot of yellows and touch of red and white to create a sort of a hazy burst of light in the background. I think in a painting this size, I'm going to keep the elements as simple as possible and just focus on light against dark. Layering in the paint at an early stage. This is the first layer, but there will be subsequent ones. And the light, I normally use as much paint as I can, so the gouache is fairly thick on the brush here when I'm putting these light colors in. So the paint's not in a watery looseness. This isn't like watercolor, of course. This is an opaque medium, so try and make it as thick as possible. Here you can see bringing in some of the medium yellows and getting already a second layer in some of these parts. Little touch of blue for a bit of green tint to it. In other words, a variety of warm and cool color. Even in the lights you can bring in cooler color. As long as it's cooler than your warmest lights, then it will show up and have a slight touch of variety to your shape. I do the same in the shadows as well. I will use slightly darker or slightly cooler color here and there to create interest in the shadows. But anyway, I've got to keep filling in the shadow, I should say fill in the lights. I've still got the lights across the road as well. Now I'm using what is called a memory point brush, and it's one of my favorite brushes, together with this one, which is a Winsor & Newton Kolinsky Sable. It's quite a small one. They are fairly expensive, but definitely worth it. And I love this little brush. So between this Sable and the memory point brush as well, I am pretty much covered with gouache brushes. So one will be a square point or flat brush, you could say, and then this one, which is a round. Right, a few of the darks, just a bit of burnt sienna and a bit of blue to suggest the edge of the road. Some temperature variety in the trees. So you're never stuck with one shade of dark. You can bring in different temperature variety of color into your dark shapes as well to make them more interesting. Some suggestion of overhanging leaves and branches on the top left to help frame and add a nice bit of value contrast with the light in the middle. Now across the road, the color leaning towards a sort of a pinkish color, but still fairly yellow. Sometimes when I'm doing light across an asphalt road like this, it'll be a lightish pink, and it just depends on the color of the light, really. This being a sort of sunrise situation, the light's very warm, and softening up the edge of the shadow with this sort of bluish violet, cerulean, alizarin and white. It's quite a nice color, just quite a pretty blue, you'd sometimes call it. Use with caution, of course, but here it's working. And now a darker violet for the inner shadows across the road. So the painting actually developing pretty quickly and heading to the sort of concluding marks, where I'll start bringing in more variety in the shapes, and I've still got to get in the main highlights and some dark accents as well. So all little touches, breaking up shapes here and there, and some of these stronger highlights now, which is really just lemon yellow and a bit more white, and they sort of add the spark. Easy to overdo it, of course, so just keep an eye on that. A few dark accents in the form of tree shapes or branches, touch of green, and we're almost there. I'm going to add in a figure or just to catch some attention, and a few more light spots over the darks in the road. You'll notice if shapes are too flat or too regular, you may have to just break them up a little and get that bit of interest and variety back in. Don't overdo these, and those sky holes in the trees may be just a little bright. I'll drop in a little bit of blue there, just break that up. And now let's get a figure in. Remember to keep the head very small and the legs fairly long. As long as it's believable, it'll be all right. And a couple of light posts or telephone poles, something to just break up that shape, and we're done. So quite a fun little painting, and I must say I enjoyed it. It's the subject I enjoy the most, I think. So there's a fun little gouache painting, and you can try these yourself anytime. They don't take long to do, and really a lot of pressure-free painting. And I love doing these when I need to de-stress and get away from something too serious. Right, well, happy painting, and remember to check out the Gouache Painting for Beginners course below. And of course, it'll be great if you can subscribe to this channel and enjoy the videos I'm going to be adding from week to week. Cheers for now.